Hey, Airfun here with the Six-Legged Aggie. We're now in early 2020, and whenever we're starting out a new year, one of the first things I got to do is start setting up all of our research trials for the year, because setting up insect colonies, acquiring plant colonies, and all that type of stuff can take time, especially when we're talking about crepe myrtle bark scale. So this is an invasive pest of crepe myrtles we first saw in Texas, just north of Dallas, a little before 2004. This particular pest does most well on crepe myrtles. That is its most established pest in the landscape. Most established plant host in the landscape. And to establish their populations, it can take a little while. So to really get their populations built up, it can take one season or a couple seasons to really get a good, reliable inoculation, get that population on all these crepe myrtles. And as you can see, crepe myrtles are not annuals, so you do, it is something that is in a large potted plant, and so it can take a little while to really establish them, acquire them, and to get them on drip and all that kind of good stuff there. So one of the first things I got to do is come on out here and make sure that all my crepe myrtles are actually infested with crepe myrtle bark scale, and you can see some signs of it right there. So that's good. So when we actually go to test out, say, some insecticides and see how well they work to manage crepe myrtle bark scale, we got to make sure that we actually have infestation on all these crepe myrtles. So we're going to check before we test out some different products, and then we're going to spray them, and everything is replicated. So any specific type of insecticide might go on 10 different plants, and that way, if there is some variation, right, so some of these naturally are going to have higher infestation than others, hopefully it can kind of balance out. So when we look at our data, we can kind of account for any differences at the beginning of the trial between our treatments and make sure we're accounting for that, so that if by coincidence one particular treatment just started with very few crepe myrtle bark scale, we're not incorrectly concluding that it performed really well at eliminating crepe myrtle bark scale. It could have just been that we started with low populations. So I've got two different types. We've got our our standard crepe myrtles, kind of a little bit taller, and then we do have some of our dwarf crepe myrtles. These ones are going to be a little bit more challenging to assess. We certainly do have some very good infestation here, as well. As you can see, those white dots on the crepe myrtle bark. Again, that's the crepe myrtle bark scale. You can see it's all over these crepe myrtles, and it's a sucking insect pest. We have a number of other videos and presentations you can check out, or go to stopcmbs.com to get more information on this particular pest. But they're a major problem, particularly in the nursery. In the landscape, they're not going to kill a plant, they hurt the aesthetics. So in that way, a lot of people want to manage it. But in the nursery, if you have those white spots on there, you can't sell that plant. And so it's vital for these producers that they have a good control method that's going to essentially eradicate crepe myrtle bark scale from their crepe myrtles. Otherwise, that's a big waste of money. So you can imagine it takes several years and a lot of resources, a lot of time to grow one of these. And these are not even very large. Some of the producers grow some very large crepe myrtles that are very costly and take a long time to produce. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I'm doing out here is, again, just going across, looking at all the crepe myrtles and trying to get a good idea of the evenness of our infestation, making sure everything's well infested. From there, I can go to the drawing board, decide, how many treatments I want to try out, what are some different insecticides I want to try that we haven't in the past, and from there start to design the experiment, create a timeline, and kind of go from there. So that's one of our research protocols, kind of getting started underway.